So yeah, let's get into this one. Parker, are you gonna share the screen or am I gonna do it and we lose this side of us? I think that's
Oh no, I'm happy to. I can keep sharing.
all right. Um, I think it's a good start to go to the documentation website. So docs.btcpayserver.org. And there you will find. I always first go to user docs. This is just me because I feel like the menu up top is easier. Click on the contribute tab up top, and basically there's different topics here on how we start helping out in BTCPay server. We have written all this stuff down, though sometimes it might lack in visuals and making it a little bit easier. But you can click on this setup development environment, and there's a whole list of steps that we got to take. But I think it's a good idea to start with the basic one, which is the whole GitHub story. I don't know what everybody uses, Windows or Mac, because there are little differences in that regard. I don't know what Ben uses. Don't know what Parker uses.
What?
Windows.
Windows.
Yep, Windows.
All right. So um, to immediately bring you up to something that I am slowly working on, and maybe can find somebody who helps me on that one. Right now, the deployment of the documents page, as we're looking at it right now, locally is, let's put it as it is, a little bit of pain in the butt. It's not easy on a Windows machine, as easy as it is on Linux or on Mac. There is, however, a way you can check your changes, um, but we'll go through that one in a bit. We'll see how it works. So there's two portions to this one. We got the documentation repo, which I feel like is the easiest one to get into contributing because it's all documents, it's text, it's written in Markdown. It's not that complicated. And the other one is of course the main software, which is the BTCPay Server repository. Um, I personally want the BTCPay Server repository on my machine always locally, because I can then pull requests or new features or functions that we're making into my own local development environment and basically try everything out and then start writing for the documents part. Um, just to get a feel here of what people want, I think it's a good idea to set it up both so we get both repositories locally on your machine. And so you're able to run that on your own machine. There is a small catch because you're gonna deploy Docker containers, and if you're not prepared and you have not installed Docker before, it needs a restart in there. So just so you know it already.
When you say locally, do you mean locally on a VM that's hosted on your main
No,
PC?
in this case, I'm talking about real dedicated on your own hardware, not virtualized, but you can do it virtualized. And the only thing that you got to keep in mind if you do it virtualized, um, you're gonna be virtualizing Docker. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does, but it's not great. I noticed this myself with a couple other deployments that are out there. And once you start doing virtual in virtual, because in the end a Docker container is a virtualized part of a VM, it's not always great. Just telling you
From a
upfront, straight up.
performance perspective?
Performance perspective and out of the perspective of Docker not always responding in the way that you kind of hope it does. I've noticed on multiple things and projects that Docker containers all of a sudden don't get the right resources anymore, mostly when you're doing I/O stuff. So when you're starting to write data to storage, um, Docker containers don't really love dedicated storage already. And once you start virtualizing that with heavy data streams, it gets kind of hard sometimes. So
Okay,
yeah,
yep. So the way to go is install Docker on your host machine?
Yeah, I personally do that. Yes, and just have my dedicated machine for doing this stuff. So maybe that's my advantage over somebody else. But yeah, I feel like it's the best way to do it because you're gonna be deploying something that is I'm not gonna say it's heavy, but due to all the parts that you're gonna be simulating, it makes it a little bit memory intensive. So you're looking at somewhere along the lines between 6 to 8 gigs of RAM that it starts using. Um, you got to keep that in mind. So if you build a virtual machine, you got to give it like 16 gig of RAM virtually to make this run smooth. You see where I'm going, right? It gets yeah, it's not the greatest
Yeah.
solution. But
Yeah.
what you probably could do, I don't advise you to do it because I don't have a manual for it yet, or I'm not really thinking about doing it. But what you could do is, for example, make this software go onto a Raspberry Pi. If you have one laying around that's doing nothing and has the right specs for it, you could set it up on a deployment like that too, right? If you want to avoid doing it on your own machine. So just that said, it takes a little bit more intensity of yourself. Um, but yeah, with that said, let's just kick things off. And first of all, you need a GitHub account, of course. I kinda assume everybody in here has a GitHub account, and if you're watching this, you're probably creating right now at GitHub.com. You can create an account, and that way you can start going to our repositories. If you could go back to the guide page for me, Parker. So there's a couple of things that we tell you that you need. If you scroll down for me a little bit, we tell you on the Windows setup what software pieces do you need to get everything set. So talking about the documentations repo, how you get that into your Visual Code and stuff, but also how do you deploy your local BTCPay server for yourself to develop on. So there's a couple of things. We tell you Visual Studio, I'd say just pick up Visual Code. It's free to, doesn't cost anything. Download the other initial stuff. So the .NET Core, the Docker desktop, which is pretty awesome for Windows nowadays. It kind of works. And these are the initial steps that basically everybody has to take to get set up. So Parker here is showing that you go to the Docker website or the GitHub website. I didn't know which one you took, but Docker as it seems. Um, so you download the software that they recommend you to download at that point, the most stable and latest version.
Is someone sharing their screen?
Yeah. Anyway, we will share the links as well and make sure that underneath the YouTube we have all the necessary steps again too. But if you go to the docs.btcpayserver.org /contribute, you will click on the dev code portion of it, so the development stuff. Scroll down a little bit to the Windows setup, and it tells you exactly the software steps that we got to take at first. So you don't need to download PowerShell, of course, because that's included in your Windows environment. And GitHub, you're downloading GitHub Desktop, so Git is getting in there too. And I believe Git Bash is on there too, just for if you need to do certain things that GitHub Desktop doesn't do as well. You don't per se need it. And are there any questions to this so far? Is there anything unclear of what you need or what you need to download or where you create an account? For Docker, it might be something you want to do is create an account too, because Docker has Docker Hub, where they share images that you can use to create containers. You don't have to, but you can if you want. All right, Ben. So I see that Parker is now downloading GitHub Desktop too. Awesome. Sign up to it. You gotta authorize it as he shows us right now. And then he opens up the GitHub. And he's fired up so far. So that's the first steps. We're not gonna clone anything yet. We're gonna do that in a second or two. Um, I see that Ben has reconnected again. If you can go to the BTCPay Server repository for me, Parker.
Yep. Where was I?
To the left.
Ah,
Yeah. And you're in the docs repo by this point, I see. So whenever you're in here, you can grab the link just out of the address bar of your browser, or what you can do is click the big green button that says code, and you can say, well, I kind of want to open this with my GitHub desktop. This is a way. You don't have to do it this way, because we describe a different way too on our documentation webpage. I'm going to pull it up for myself too, so we can read it alongside each other.
so I just click this for now.
No, not yet, please. I'm just showing you that this is an option to take, or at least to take onwards from what we're doing right now. So you also, are we going into the bash right now? No, we're not. Yeah, you can actually do this. It's fine. Go for it. You can just click on the code, open with GitHub desktop, and then it will tell you, hey, I want to clone a repository. Which basically means, hey, I'm gonna pull this part from BTCPay Server, which is on GitHub, locally to my machine, and it tells you your path where it's gonna store it. You might want to change this depending on where you have storage, because you are gonna pull in all the files that come along with it. So if you're fine with the location standard, it will send it to documents, GitHub, and then name it the repository. Yes, what's up, Casper?
I was just thinking, if you want to change I went with the default path. I'm not happy with it. How hard is that to change? Pretty easy, or?
Well, you could just delete the You could just delete the repository and clone it to somewhere else. That's basically how easy it is.
Well, yeah, I guess that's an option.
Yeah. So whenever
I was thinking more if you'd already done some stuff that you wanted to keep.
so you still do the same thing, because you saved it to your own GitHub area that you have. You've saved the branch that you were working on. This is later stuff, but just to make it short, the branch that you created, you uploaded it to GitHub, and you can just clone that branch back into your local environment. So you can just swap the path whenever you want to. So Parker right now cloned the repository of BTCPay Server, its docs repo. And just purely for the sake of this demo, I also kind of want you to do the same for the normal BTCPay Server repository. So you do the same for the full software. It's going to update for a little bit, check what is the latest status to it, and it now shows you that you're on the BTCPay Server repository and which branch you are on. And as standard, it will always give you the master branch. This is not where we're going to develop on, because that's not how Git works. Git always wants you kind of to make your own branch, so you can work on your stuff without disrupting anybody else's work, and in the end you can all merge it together, and in that way you collaborate it on the same software without disrupting each other. This is called making a branch. If you're in the documents and reading with us, you can find a create a development feature branch. So what we're gonna do is basically make our own little version, to call it that way, of this repository, of this software. And to do this, we're gonna first clone it, what we just did, and after that we're gonna make a branch. If you can pull up the what is it, the guide for me again, Parker?
This guy?
Yep. And it tells you create a development feature branch. So basically what it does, it goes back to Git bash to tell you how to create a branch. The reason I think why we tell you to do it in Git Bash is because it's just Git, purely used from off your command line in Windows or in your Linux environment. And we tell you basically the base principles and commands that we use to do this in Git. Do you have Git Bash already installed?
I thought I did. Oh,
Well,
I guess not.
apparently you don't.
Nope.
So if you scroll up a little bit, it shows you a link to Git Bash. Are there so far questions already?
Naming conventions for branches.
So basically, if you're creating your own branch, and our star man Nicholas, if you ever have the time, look up how he names his branches. There's no real naming convention for your own branch. Just make it conventional enough for yourself that you know what you're doing. And once you get to the point of really checking out or basically putting in the PR for your branch, make sure to make it really clear what you did or what you were working on, or link it to the issue that comes along with it. That's basically the most important part. Naming isn't, doesn't really matter too much.
Who
Or-
reviews the pull requests?
Sorry?
Who reviews the pull requests?
We all do together, so everybody is allowed. Especially nowadays, I think it's a new feature since a bit of time, that GitHub allows you to work together within code. So let's say, Ben, you created a PR, you created a new page for, let's say, the document repo, and you push the PR. I of course can see it, right, because it's open source, and I can also go into your code at that point and start reviewing it. And I can put in suggestions of, hey, Ben, maybe this should be a little different, or I found some typos, or even as soon or as once we go into the real software, hey, I actually found a little bug that you created or something with a piece of code. Well, I can do that in the comments or in the review on GitHub. That way we work along. And for the docs repository especially, it's, I believe, Pavel, Brid, Zax, I think, that do commits to the master branch after review. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Pavel, if he's still here, could tell us a little bit more on who does the end merge. For the docs repo, mostly it's Pavelnex doing the commits and the merges to the master branch. So he will be most of the time the last one who reviews it. And for the main repository and software, since Nicholas reviews, Mr. Cox reviews, Rockstar sometimes does reviews. Anybody basically who contributes to the project is able and allowed to review stuff. And if you find something, you find something and you change it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, if you push something to the docs repo, for example, it could also be me who reviews something, but I'm not able to merge it. So I'll leave a comment for I leave a comment and then I tag Pavelnex and, hey, I reviewed this, I found these and these things. Maybe you do an end review, but I think we can close this one. So in that sense, I kind of did the review, but because I don't have the proper keys, so to say, to close off the case, Pavelnex closes the issue or pushes the merge. All right. So Parker just downloaded Git Bash, and I think he installed it too.
Yep.
Awesome. Could you, if you fire it up, then we can start doing the little commands that are there to create a new branch. Well, you get a small little terminal box, and we first want to change to the right directory where we saved our clone for the repositories. So in your case, it's, I believe you did it in your default directory, so documents and then somewhere.
Where am I at right now?
If you, I think it's just the ls that works there too, or there. What you first do is cd dot dot cd dot dot.
Wait, cd dot dot?
Yeah, so you go back a portion. I don't know where you are right now. I can't see. Now you're in users, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah, you're in users. So now go to your main user that you use. Mm-hmm.
Wait, this is here in front of that, right? Or no?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but you can do that. And then cd GitHub or documents/documents with a capital D. Yeah, now go to GitHub, cd./GitHub, and then do the BTCPay server. Let's do the main BTCPay server just for demo purposes.
Sorry
Yep.
for anyone who's watching me. Just
No worries, no
pulling
worries.
hair out.
It's all good.
Not at
So-
all.
So what it now?
Tab out. I'm like, "Whoop."
No worries.
Sorry.
What it now tells you in this terminal is that you have gone to the path that your clone lives in, but it also tells you that you're in the master branch. It shows you a little tag after. Yeah, you made it even smaller for us now. No, it's all good.
Make it, fuck it.
You're not making it better, Parker. No. No, but we're now in the right folder, so to say, in the right repository. We're in the master branch, and if you now type the command git space branch space whatever you want to name your branch, so call it new development branch or my first branch or whatever you want to name it, just to make it easy to understand what you created. Well, it's git branch and then name it a branch. Yep, that's fine.
And I just enter.
Yep, and then you just enter. And it tells you that something didn't happen, right? If you now do git and then space branch, you will see that there's two.
Oh, cool.
And whenever we want to change, we use the checkout command, which makes it git space checkout space the new branch that we just created. And now if you look at the path, it says, instead of master, your branch. And the cool thing is, if you now go to your GitHub desktop,
Oh, yeah.
yep, and then go BTCPay
cool.
server, and now it says, look at my branch.
Cool.
So we're now on this new branch. One of the things that is pretty good to do, at least I do it out of practice, and I think everybody does this too, is publish the branch. And what makes that do is push it to GitHub. So your own profile on GitHub will have this branch in it, and that way you can afterwards do PRs, because after that you can push it to the world, right? That's a little bit how it works. So if you click the publish branch, yes, you didn't fork it yet to your account. We forgot that step, I think.
Oh, we just cloned it, I think. Right?
Yeah, we didn't fork it. So yes. So if you normally you start by forking it or cloning it, forking it, and then we go into the branch. We forgot the step of the fork, but it is in the guide, so please do follow the guide. Yes, top one.
Cool.
Okay, and now you can publish the branch because you forked it to yourself. And don't click the next one yet because we didn't change anything so far. But if you do changes, at that point you will go into the create a PR. We're not that far yet. For now, we created the local files that we need, and we're able to get them from GitHub. So we are able to fork it, we're able to clone it, we're able to create our own branch to start working on stuff. So far, any questions?
No, this is smooth. Great mousing skills.
Yeah, Parker is good with that.
Trying to keep up.
So if
Gaming in the background or something.
if you do happen to run into errors, we're always around in the Mattermost, so chat.btcpayserver.org, to come and talk to us if you happen to run into something from here. Yeah, we're always happy to help. So basically what we're able to do now, we've downloaded Docker, we've downloaded the repository, so we got all the software and code and everything on our local machines. And we also got software downloaded to our machines to actually look at the code. So Visual Code or Visual Studio or whatever you want to use. And after that, we kind of want to make the real environment, right? We want to spawn it up and be able to create it. For that, we need the Docker containers. And now I'm going to be annoying to Parker because Parker just installed Docker, and Docker requires a restart after install. So we just had the reboot, and we're back into the system for Docker, and we're gonna get into the next step. So this is actually building your local BTCPay server deployment. So we pulled the repository, we created the branch, we published it to our own GitHub, and now it's time to get something running, right? We need somewhere to work in. And with that, we're gonna open up a PowerShell. I believe if you just type it, it's Shift Enter or some stuff to enter it as administrative mode. I'm not sure. But anyway, you need to be in administrative mode. And first of all, we need to go back to the right directory of where we put the clone of our BTCPay server. Wow, what's going on, Parker?
Just making it pretty.
I like this. I like this.
It's screen disco. I like it. Yeah, awesome. So now we're in the BTCPay server.tests folder. And in this folder, it contains of a couple of images for Docker. So in this same PowerShell window, we're gonna use the command docker-compose space, as you can see in the document as well. So docker dash compose, and then
Up,
space,
down.
and then up, and then dev. Yep. It's gonna run a couple of things. And why did it fail in your case? Script docker compose. So basically what this one tells you right now is that you're missing the docker compose component. So what you can do is install npm install docker compose. It
Okay.
usually gives you
NPM.
that with Docker desktop. It's kind of dumb. Oh, Docker is stopping.
Yeah, something's up with. What the hell?
All right. Now we see what's happening in Parker's case. So this is a sort of to be expected error that a lot of people might hit. So a lot of standard hardware isn't enabled to run virtualization on Windows. It's not as easy as on Mac, where you just fire off Docker and it fixes everything in the background. Pavlonex is probably rolling on the floor laughing right now, like, oh my god, these Windows people. But this is one of the things that you might encounter. And this one is something I cannot talk you through in a demo. This is something you got to figure out yourself, sadly. And one of the things that you need to do for this is go into your BIOS settings of your machine. And inside the BIOS settings, you will find a setting for virtualization. And you got to flip the switch on that one practically. So a good idea to do is find the specifications of your motherboard. And most of the times it will tell you that getting into the BIOS will be F12 or some stuff like that. And once you're in the BIOS, there's a section which is probably going to be advanced, and there you can put this on. Yeah, I remember, Kasparov, in your case, we didn't need this. Your machine was already allowed to do the virtualization, so you came off lucky. But Parker's machine apparently doesn't have that allowed yet.
Yep.
This is
And
something
figure it out.
everybody might come across though. So it does give you a little troubleshoot documentation where it tells you how to look this up and what it's called, possibly in your BIOS, but every BIOS is different. So yeah, we're kind of at a point now where we can't deploy for Parker unless he goes into the BIOS and starts fiddling around with the BIOS settings. Um, but we're gonna do that off camera. So I'm gonna take over Parker's job of sharing my screen, and hopefully you guys are able to see it. Um, let's see if I can bring everything in here that is necessary. I'm happy that I kind of prepared for this one.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I feel bad too, guys. I'm kind of hitting the wall. I haven't eaten any food today yet, or.
Yeah, it's a long session already, eh?
Yeah.
It's tiring being the driver. You gotta
Oh
really pay
man,
attention.
yeah. thanks for dealing with me, guys. I was
It's great, man.
running on fumes.
Yeah, this is the last part I was gonna do for today, though, setting up this local version so we at least know how to get the repository of the GitHub and get into looking at our own deployment, and from there off be able to build the next time. So we had the initial step of how do you get into GitHub, how do you set it up. So it's kind of too bad that this one didn't work, because yeah, it's literally the last step. Um, let's see if I can share you my screen, guys. It's gonna be screen 2. I think it should be shared now.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys can see it.
Yes. Yep.
That's awesome.
Not
So
yet, but soon.
so I think you now see the guide, right? I can't see it myself anymore, so I gotta kind of rely on what I'm showing you that it works. So inside the guide, we just were at the point where we did the Docker compose. And once you do the Docker compose, assuming you have Docker compose component available to you and the virtualization is set up correctly, you should be able to run the command and it will give you a view like this. So what it tells you is that it's creating all sorts of volumes in first instance, and then it's telling you that it's creating all kinds of portions of the software. So it tells you it's creating the database, it tells you the setup for SSH, Bitcoin Tor, all the stuff is getting created. And once this is done, you are ready to debug like a rock star, as the code tells you. How does that look? Once you're inside Docker, it's going to be this. So Docker Desktop shows you an instance, which is BTCPay Server tests, the one that we just launched. And it has all these similar parts that we just saw getting created. So the Tor, the Bitcoin D, the SSH, all that stuff is in here. And all these things are on itself called containers in Docker. I'm not going to explain how Docker works, but these are all small portions of an operating system working together to be a functional application. With this said, you have now, as you can see, deployed BTCPay Server locally on your machine. It's running, it tells me. And if I go here, it actually does, because well, I'm using the new version so far, or at least one of the later PRs, and we are inside our BTCPay server. This one is locally hosted, as you can see, because it's on the 127.0.1. And basically, we can now try testing it out, fooling around, and if we find something, we can go into our developer's code and start changing stuff, because we actually downloaded all the code in our local repositories earlier when we did all the cloning. And if we do changes to anything in here, it will show up in our live environment here. So yeah, that's about it for this part, I think, of going through this guide and pulling in the first portions for BTCPay Server if you want to contribute with it. For now, I think it's a good thing to wrap up this session, and move this session into a second one somewhere next week or the week onwards from it, where we actually do something in the code or in BTCPay Server docs, where we start changing the files in GitHub. I'm always available for questions and DMs and moments to talk and hey, I'm looking in doing this, but I don't know where to start. You can always talk to me. I think you can always also talk to Pavel next to get up to date with what is happening. We also have our schedules, of course, with normal talks. But yeah, for now, is there anything I can still tell you, enlighten you about for now that you feel like I want to notice?
How many regular contributors have you got to the project?
In total?
Pay server.
So,
Well, I was thinking more the pay server side of things, but yeah, in total, I guess as well.
I mean, currently rough numbers, but like people who constantly contribute every month, as we refer them as core contributors, there is like a team of 8 to 10 people most, and then you have on top of that, and these people are also funded through the BTCPay Server Foundation, and then on top of that, it's mostly contributors who do things occasionally or just, you know, are in community and fix things from time to time. So it's not really a big team in terms of consistent contributions like most of the open source projects anyway. So, but the team of 10 includes like non-developers as well, so it's not 10 developers that are working on this. Most, like I would say 6-7 developers, and then on top of that you have me and a few other people. But yeah.
yeah.
Have you got any companies or enterprises who are also some of those developers are from? Do any companies get involved with helping out?
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean by companies? Like,
yeah, paid developers on the payroll of
oh,
a
you mean
company
like companies sponsoring? No. There aren't any external companies supporting people to contribute to BTCPay Server, if that's what you're asking. We did have one grant in the past, like 2 years ago, I think. A company gave partial grant to cooks to contribute, but this was prior to us having a foundation, from what I remember. So there is no like external company hiring of their developers or paying them their time to work on BTCPay Server. No. You would be amazed. BTCPay Server team operates at less than 30K a month, which is like 1 month's salary for 10 people or even more, not including costs, accountant, and everything like that. So pretty cost efficient team. Most of us do it part-time. All of us actually do it part-time. So
yeah, I've seen some posts where you're talking about that.
I think it was asked about a week or two ago by somebody in the Telegram, and we shared the word. Yeah, it's a good
trying to find it.
Short summary of how it works and how things are funded.
Okay, I found it. Yeah, I'll post it in the chat just for transparency. Like, this isn't any secret, or like BTCPay Server is probably the most transparent type of organization that you'll find in this space anyway. So I posted it in the chat.
Nice.
And one of the most important.
Yeah.
I don't say that lightly, because I think really the ability for people to transact value to each other is so important, and so that makes your work here very, very important in this space.
And that's why we're doing these calls out in the open, to hopefully get more people to help us out and tell us the stories, and especially for your kid, for example, tell us how he experienced it as a merchant. I mean, that's a contribution to the project in itself too. We love to hear these. But for now, I'm gonna wrap this one up, at least for the recording. I want to thank everybody here that you joined us. I want to thank Parker for sharing the screen and taking us through the steps. And the next time we will dive into some actual code and do some changes out there. So everybody, thank you. And
what is the next time, Bass?
I think it
I'm not
will
seeing it on the
be.
calendar.
No, I didn't update it yet on the calendar, but I think it will be next week or the week after. But I will keep you updated in the Mattermost channels and on other channels where we will be doing these hands-on and maybe in the future live broadcasts. So
The plan is a semi-weekly
yes,
type of pace, ongoing until a few more.
until you're a
Indefinitely,
rock
I hope.
star. That's basically
All
the
right.
idea.
Ooh, all right.
We want more rock stars, and that's the goal.
2030. Sounds good.
All right. So everybody, thank you for being here, and maybe we stay a little bit longer, but see you next time in the next episode at least.
Thanks for hosting, Beth.
For too long, we've relied on trusted third parties to process digital payments. The world is changing, and so are your customers. As cash payments decrease, digital payments become the standard. But existing apps charge transaction fees and lack privacy. BTCPay is a Bitcoin payment platform. It gives control over your business back to you, helping people achieve financial freedom with donations, payments, and more. Help your family and onboard your friends. Use BTCPay to host multiple stores and become a payment platform of your own. While the world changes around you, stay in control of your finances. It's simple to use, censorship resistant, and completely free. This is more than a payment platform. It's transforming digital payments as fast as the world around us.